On our trip through Costa Rica, we visited in the province of Limón, a place of majestic beauty and incomparable richness that possesses a unique ecosystem. We had the experience of spending the night in the middle of a tropical forest, in a Caribbean-style hut built with second-class wood and recycled material, solar energy, and a wastewater treatment system. We enjoyed a high dose of adrenaline in the gyroplane, where we had the opportunity to observe the treasure that houses this reserve and its borders. Now another adventure awaits us, a journey on horseback to learn about a history of conservation of more than 25 years. Fagro, Colombia. Welcome. We are going to do the adventure tour, horseback riding tour that crosses our primary forest, as it was discovered 45 years ago for agricultural use and 34 years ago we gave it a conservation use. And then come with me, please. Our horses are beautiful. They are very safe, and you do not have to have previous experience to have an unforgettable experience. And yes, safety first. Let's go with the helmet. Okay, follow me. Let's go up. To a very privileged point that sees without having to go to fly our reserve from an angle that would be one of the parts of the eastern border. And we have the Bananito River Valley and the main part of the reserve where we pass now in the gyrocopter. Welcome. See this view of the first valley created by the Bananito River. The jungle, precisely the jungle that protects the basin of the Bananito River that today is the source of water for 100,000 people in the city of Limón. We are located in the southeast corner of the northern corridor of the Biosphere Reserve, La Amistad, that in 1983 was established as such. Part of our reserve is part of the World Heritage for its great biological wealth and biodiversity, and what we are participating in today is an adventure tour on horseback. We are moving and traveling in time. Today we went to the future by gyrocopter, which is the highest tour we have, and now we are going back, as it was 45 years ago, when our father acquired this land, in 1974. We had to travel 8 hours by train, change the train, another hour or hour and a half to the town of Bananito North, and from there 3.5 hours on horseback, to reach this destination. Today we are moved by conservation, sustainability, in fact a process of regenerative tourism that we want. Once we have made the decision not to use the timber resource anymore and give it that added value through the economic activity of tourism, generating much more employment with an activity that only leaves traces of human beings. The resource as you see it, this is the home of the puma and the jaguar, and for us it is a privilege to share it with you. Welcome to the banana forest. Okay, we'll be right down. Let's get to the adventure part. Okay, in about 500 meters we are going into the forest. This is the area that was obviously changed in use with banana plantations from 1895 to 1928. Then 3/4 of the farm was regenerated. In its totality the reserves are almost 1,200 hectares of primary forest. Fagro in 1974. Our father entered this area. It was 8 hours by train from the capital San Jose to the port of Limon. We changed trains, then another hour and a half to the town of Bananito North and 3.5 hours to horse. What we are doing now is a trip back in time to the past. It is how Costa Rica was colonized, how this part of the country developed, and also the history of our family. Join us. Remember that when we go up we have to go forward, and when we go down we have to go backwards. I am stopping in a place where there is a magical tree called cacha. This is a species found in Talamanca, in the Talamanca mountain range that joins Costa Rica with Panama. From this tree we take hundreds of seeds to replant in the project of natural regeneration and assisted reforestation that we have in the part of traditional use, we take from this seedbed. Follow me.
Okay.
We are going to cross a small creek that unfortunately in 45 years we have never seen dry due to the climate patterns that are changing rapidly in the Costa Rican Caribbean. The most adventurous part comes. We are going to ascend, so what do we have to do? We just have to hold forward, just because the horse does the work, but for those who are with me, to see a creek that is drying up since I was an infant. I was an 8-year-old boy when I first came here. To see the creeks drying up because of the changing weather patterns is extremely worrying. The natural cathedral here in the Bananito Jungle Nature Reserve. The first thing we do is thank our faithful companions, our equine friends, for the effort they made to come here. Well, thank you, Fatso, thank you. Let's tie it up, and I want to show you a forest like there are few and share with you the functions that these forests have and why we cannot live without them. This is a natural cathedral, and I want to show you some impressive trees, and I'm going to start with one that only exists in this area, just like the cacha. We have the density sampler, or the monkey pot, which is typical of this tropical rainforest. And I want us to see it, because this is one of the hardest woods that we have in our forest. Part of how we see that this wood is very, very hard, is that there is almost no shrimp. The stiffness and strength of this tree comes in its bark. And if we do a study, we have that the density sampler or the monkey pot that you see here. I have a very old seed and we say that monkeys eat this. But actually obviously a lot of the seed that the forest gives is to feed the wildlife. It is the most candle-like tree. You will never see it crooked. This Decides sampler, or monkey pot, there are 3 of us who need to embrace it, so I am going to ask you to join me. Let's see one hand here. The other there. Okay, partner. Partner. This tree may be about 200 or 250 years old. It's not the oldest. We are in an area that shows other very important indicators. The vines are very, very important because not only do they help anchor the big trees, but when an old tree dies through the vines, it opens up such a large space for forest regeneration to happen. When we enter a primary forest, we have the sap esquinery, which we saw yesterday, but also an infinity of rooster tail and different palms, palmettos, especially bitter and sweet palms that are indicators that obviously this area has not been impacted. Along with the amphibians, the bird that is emblematic for being Bananito, which is the great jacamaro, and what our camera traps are going to attract today, following the trail of the felines, which is the most intensive tour that we offer, is precisely the opportunity to see pumas, jaguars, marigordos, ocelots, and to see everything we are doing in perfect communion with the forest. And when I say we are doing it is because we assume that responsibility, but all the people who make it possible are all of you who, when you consume ecotourism, sustainable, regenerative products, are making a difference, not only in your heart but for the planet. Welcome to Reserva Selva Bananito. Let's show you the apartment I have here. Follow me. When we came on horseback, I talked about the cacha, a native species of the Talamanca mountain range that joins Costa Rica with Panama. In this case, when cacha is already several hundred years old, it becomes hollow. This tree is alive, so it becomes my apartment. Welcome. They are used in several ways. You can make bridges for small streams, or they are cut in two, and traditionally they are used to put salt shakers for cattle. In this case we prefer to leave this relic standing. At some point it was struck by lightning, but it is alive. At the top, you can see, it still has many leaves, and if you allow me, follow me to this beauty. This is the natural cathedral, the Selva Bananito, or Sabo, and it is the sacred tree of the Mayas. And here we have a species that, although it is not hardwood like the cacha or the olla de mano that I showed you, it is a tree that has many functions, and let us remember the functions that we have in these forests. In fact, in any forest on the planet, we produce oxygen when it comes to fixing carbon. On average, the trees that we have been showing you have captured from 3 to 5 tons of CO2 per tree, and we have a reserve that has perhaps 500 to 700,000 tons of carbon captured. We have root systems that guarantee us water. That's why it scares me so much to go through streams that are drying up because it hasn't rained. It hasn't rained in a long time. There are trees that have in their root system the possibility of retaining up to 500,000 liters of water in a year when rain conditions are normal. But what else does a forest do? It regulates the microclimate, prevents erosion, feeds wildlife, and for us it is an opportunity to have an almost spiritual experience. To come to such a privileged place in your company, and thank you very much for joining us. In this natural cathedral we have a Cabo Villa that is embedded in this Selva, and this is also very strange that two huge trees are embedding. The most important competition, that is the biggest stress in the tropical rainforest, is access to light, but well, soon it will be water apparently. But access to light, so we have trees that on average measure between 40 and 50 meters high before reaching the top. The human being without forests will not have life. A forest is a source of life, and in our case we are in the southeast corner of the International Park, La Amistad, of a biosphere reserve in which there are more than 10,000 square kilometers in conservation with more than 11 different life zones that exist in Costa Rica. Of the 12 that exist, this is sacred. This must be protected because the world will run out of water, and in our opinion there will be a natural apocalypse very soon. So contribute, support, make a difference by being responsible consumers. And how is it? By coming to protect the environment and being part of them. So the story we are sharing here in the banana forest is your story because you are going to make a difference. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you friends for joining us in this natural cathedral. It is a privilege to be able to share with you. Remember our descent in riding. Always put your weight back and legs forward. Anything you can grab and nothing happens. My horses are 4x4. The lianas are very characteristic of the tropics, the part of the higher temperatures. Thank you for joining us today on this adventure tour, getting to know part of the natural cathedrals of the Bananito Jungle Reserve. Here it is very important to recognize that we are part of the remaining natural reserves, which approximately 3% of all conservation areas are in private hands in the country, in addition to the 25% that is in conservation in the national park system. We protect 75% and a fourth part that had a change in land use. There we do traditional agriculture and we are looking for a way to make it more regenerative, more organic. The Southern Caribbean has a proportion of approximately 50% conservation, the other 50% many monoculture activities such as bananas, and in Costa Rica we have a ratio of 25 conservation and 75 agriculture. We feel that perhaps 75% was our decision and now it is the source of drinking water for the city of Limon. We believe that a 50-50 ratio is perhaps the one we need to maintain to guarantee us the essential water resources, which as you saw in areas where streams have never dried up, now because of climate change they are drying up and not because of deforestation. Perhaps the experience of Selva Bananito will urge you to meditate a little and reflect on what we are doing with our planet and what my role is in it. We congratulate you for joining us. We know that this horseback riding tour is not the easiest of all, but it is the most unexpectedly beautiful, because of the natural cathedral we visited today and yesterday and flew over today as well. Thank you for joining us.